What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and THEO. We have a great episode planned for you all today. We're, of course, going to preview the NBA Finals after the Heat were able to hold off the Celtics. And then, of course, we saw what the Nuggets did to the Lakers. And then we're going to do a Defensive Player of the Year draft. If you've seen the most recent episodes, we've done Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. Today, we're going to be drafting our picks to win Defensive Player of the Year. And then we will wrap things up with a mailbag segment. And we're going to be pulling mailbag questions every single episode from our Twitter, YouTube comments, and our chalkboard chat. So make sure you go in and follow the Twitter at StayHotPod, and make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well. But before we get into all of those things, Matt, THEO, how are you guys doing today?
I'm pretty good. I made a big 6-hour drive from Flagstaff to Moab, Utah today. I'm helping my girlfriend move to Denver, and it's about a halfway point, and it's a beautiful town, and we wanted to split up the drive. So I'm here in Utah. It's a kind of an eventful thing, but there's not too much to talk about. It's just moving, packing up all your stuff, hitting the road. I wish it was more. I wish I had more fun things to say about it. It's just
so my girlfriend and I were planning a trip, just like she gets one 4-day weekend, and we live 2 hours away right now. So we're like, oh, we'll take this weekend getaway. And we were looking at. I was looking at Utah, but she was like, well, we can't do Utah in a weekend. I'm like, that's fair, but I've heard Utah's
that's very
beautiful.
Fair. The drive up here was really gorgeous. It was really, really gorgeous. We were behind a Blue Bunny ice cream truck, and we're not able to pass it for a very, very long time. And that's the only negative thing I have to say about Utah.
I hate driving behind trucks. It's they all drive so slow. Every single truck.
Yeah, and this one had a bunch of ice cream on the back, and I was hungry, and it was just kind of mocking me. I couldn't stop. There was no gas station. We're out in the middle of the desert. It's hot.
You should have rear-ended it so that they they would open.
Yeah, I was about to pirate it. I saw a video of a guy in a car get out of the car through the sunroof, jump onto the back of a fruit truck, and get some oranges for his boys in the truck. And I thought about putting the car on cruise control because this thing was going exactly 65. Hopping out, getting on the truck, and then returning with some ice cream. Like it's a Fast and Furious movie, but
got to get the Tesla with the fully automatic driving or whatever.
I know.
So you don't have to do anything.
Once that happens, I'll be able to pull that off. But
once you get the Stay Hot Tesla sponsorship. Anyway, Matt, how are you doing?
Doing all right. Nothing too eventful today. Probably going to go to the Reds game on Friday. Hopefully, Ellie De La Cruz gets called up. That's what we're praying for right now, and we can go watch his first game. But outside of that, nothing too eventful for me.
How good are the Reds?
I was about to ask, are the Reds any good?
They're okay. They're probably not super crazy, but the Central's real bad, so they've got a shot to make the playoffs.
Are they better than the Guardians?
No. But they're also a young rebuilding team. So,
the reason I ask is I'm like, are you famous enough to get on the big screen as celebrities in attendance?
I think so.
We'll make some calls. We'll make it happen. But you guys want to talk about some basketball?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, the Celtics could not get it done, and we can sit here and say all we want about what happened, but I think we all know that it's because Jason Tatum hurt his ankle. That's the reason they lost.
It's a big part of it.
Definitely didn't help them.
Yeah. I'm just
look. Brogdon was hurt as well, and then you've got Tatum on a bum ankle on literally the first play of the game, and then a Jaylen Brown disaster class, and that's what you get. It's one of those. It's one of those games where nothing was going right for them, and variance determines that there's going to be some horrible 3-point shooting nights throughout the course of a NBA season. And they ran into that as well. And they didn't score any points. And that's a big problem. And I don't know what else to say besides that. That's as simple as it boils down to.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree. I thought they did a really bad job. I mean, part of it was they just missed some open shots. And at the end of the day, it's not to give the Celtics excuses. It's their fault for putting themselves in a situation where they're down 3-0. It's the hard part of coming down 3-0 is that you're going to have bad shooting nights in a 4-game stretch, and it's hard to get 4 in a row against anybody, right? So, Tatum wasn't super aggressive, and that minute was Jaylen Brown time. And as a number 2 option, it's tough with him because he just can't consistently put the ball on the floor like you want him to. He turned the ball over a ton. He took a lot of bad shots, way too many shots where it's just early in the shot clock. I'm taking it over somebody, and those weren't falling for him. And if they're not, it's just really tough to get anything going offensively. He did a good job switching a lot, made things really tough for the Celtics going inside. And it always felt like the Celtics, even when they did drive inside, were more trying to set up threes than they were actually trying to get to the paint and then score inside, which I felt like was the number one thing they needed to do. But it's also hard when your best player has a messed up ankle.
A big problem with them this entire year has been getting things done in crunch time and getting things done late in the fourth quarter. Like their differential between the first 90% of the game and the last 10% is huge. They get way worse when it's time to win and they play not to lose. And it's been a theme throughout this entire year. And I think it's pretty fitting that in a game 7, they could just come out flat. Like at the end, they come out flat. That's kind of been the story of the Celtics season the entire time. And it wasn't just one reason. Like, yes, their best player, his ankle is at a 90-degree angle early in the game. I know he limped off after the press conference and people were accusing him of, making too big a deal out of it or putting on a show. It's like, I saw the replay, man. It looked kind of rough. And he was obviously, like you said, not quite himself. So we'll see what it is. And I know Jaylen Brown, after the miraculous game 6 win, they brought him on the set, the TNT guys did, and they asked him about it. And they were like, why does this always happen to you? And he said, you kind of think about, we get in our heads too much. We overthink it. We don't want to be the guy to make a mistake. And then we're the guy to make a mistake. That's his own words. And that just was kind of the story of the game 7.
Yeah.
Is like,
I think what happened is early in that game, the shots weren't falling for him. And they were like, oh no, this is going to be one of those games. And they look very rattled. They couldn't quite recover from it. Tatum was particularly it didn't look like he could get into a rhythm. And part of that was the ankle, but also part of that just seemed to be like they weren't moving quite the same way that you expected them to. But again, the Heat also have their injuries and it's something you got to play through. So.
Right. That's the other thing. Is like
once Tatum went down, it was Jaylen Brown time, and Jaylen Brown time, just the clock fell off the wall and shattered onto the floor. And
yeah, I mean, we talk about it's always the healthiest, most talented team is usually the one that's going to end up winning it all. But I felt like the Heat were not that up until like maybe this game.
I think they probably had the worst health luck in the series. I mean, you get down to a game 7 and you have, a messed up Tatum and Brogdon's hurt, but
right.
The Heat have been playing with Jimmy Butler and a messed up ankle and no Tyler Hero at all. So I don't really buy into the injury stuff like being worse for the Celtics than it is for the Heat.
Yeah. Well, we're about to get to a point. I think tomorrow is game 1. Heat Nuggets in the finals. And Matt, you've said before you're just gonna roll Nuggets, maybe in 5.
Yeah, I'm going Nuggets in 5 is my pick.
God,
I just don't think they have anything for Jokic. I don't think anybody does, and he's faced a lot of teams that Gobert and Anthony Davis, and it's like those are the guys that you would want up against Jokic, and it just hasn't mattered. I just don't think there's anything you can throw at him. And on top of that, the Heat are not built to stop Jokic, in my opinion, right? I mean, the only guy you have that you feel like you can really even put on him is Bam. And Bam himself is a great defender.
It's Kevin Love.
But you're right, it's going to be Kevin Love after that. But he's an undersized 6'9" center. And I just think that even if you're great defensively, if Anthony Davis couldn't do it, I don't think he can either, man. I think Jokic is just going to work right over him. And the Celtics had a bunch of bad shooting nights, and I just don't see that as being that likely for the Nuggets. Milwaukee, even though they won a title, as a team that messes around a lot. The Celtics, they've been good for a long time. They're a team that messes around a lot. The Nuggets don't mess around, man. They're a buzzsaw right now. And I think, people have been picking against the Heat all playoffs, and they've been wrong. But I that alone cannot make me pick them. In a vacuum, I think it's Nuggets here.
Yeah, I think to bet on a Heat victory, you've got to kind of bet on some flukiness and something that's kind of unexplainable. I don't think that you can sit here and lay out a way that the Heat are clearly better than the Nuggets. It's here are the ways that the Heat can hold on, and if they get a bit of luck, then maybe they can steal some games and maybe that leads to a win. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. is taller than Bam. Not that that's everything or really anything because they don't guard each other, but the Nuggets are way bigger than the Heat. They're the best offensive team maybe ever if you look at it statistically. They just went up against a Lakers team that was the best defense in the playoffs maybe and swept them, right? They went through them like it was nothing. And look, the Lakers also
couldn't score. A lot of times, they couldn't hit their open threes to save their life.
You're right about that. And the Heat have been amazing shooting the ball. Duncan Robinson has found something. Martin, who knows what he's on these days, but he's a very good player. He's shooting, whatever it is. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's very, very, very good. And yeah, I think that the Heat are a good shooting team, and if they can hit a bunch of threes are worth more than twos, and maybe they give Jokic, what's inside, and with Bam defending him, and if they can just kind of outpace him that way, that would be I'm sure that's their path to victory. But I don't know to say it because the Nuggets can hit threes too. It's not like it's a threes versus twos team or a perimeter versus post team. I got to give Spoelstra some, a bunch of credit. I can't fairly analyze him because he's a NASA rocket scientist compared to me, when it comes to basketball, he'll have a plan. It'll be utilized. I don't want to sit here and criticize the team too much, but he doesn't have too much time to not think of something. I think he can think of something. I think he always had something, but they just don't have much time to practice it. The game is tomorrow and the series just ended. So if they want to do something weird, because I think they need to throw a wrench in everything, they need to throw some chaos in there with the scheme just because they're outmatched on paper. And whatever that chaos is, whatever that cool thing that they're thinking of is, they just don't have much time to rep it, So I think they're going to have to change drastically and extremely quickly. And I think it's just I think it's a very, very tough ask, but I think they will get a game. I think they might get 2 games. I don't want to count them out at this point. I don't think it'll be a sweep. They just seem to kind of have a cheat code right now, and that's their tenacity and their mindset and their coaching. And they've been able to exploit things with lesser talent. And that's always been the way it is. And I don't think that's going to completely go away, but I don't know if they're going to overcome this one.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I'm rooting for the Heat, though. Best believe I want that Jimmy Butler title.
I kind of would like to see how people react if Jimmy Butler goes on this big run where it's he's saying all the right things in the media right now. He's I don't care about the Eastern Conference Finals, and he took off his shirt first. There's that photo that surfaced on Twitter. He's doing all that stuff, and he's having this great run. And if he loses the finals and he's 0-2. People
better not slander him, man.
They won't. But that's what's interesting about it is people kind of have to reckon with the fact that you can be that type of guy. You can have this great playoff run and you could not win it. And that would be, how does that happen? So I'd like to see people judge a player outside of their finals record, I guess. I'd like to see them judge outside of just the end result and just how Jimmy has played, which has been fantastic for the most part.
I think the Twitter dialogue
the best case for Matt's content is that the Heat lose.
I just think it would be interesting. I don't really have a dog in this fight. I don't particularly care, but I think the Nuggets are going to win it. I'm fairly confident.
I am really fascinated by the way people react to Jimmy Butler and his I don't know if antics is the word, but the things that he says and the things that he does and the way that he acts. It's very Kobe-esque. It's very MJ-esque. It's very much this like winning is the only thing that matters. And after the Eastern Conference thing, and after he said like, we're going to win game 5, like you better believe, people were like, oh, he's trying for viral moments so bad. I saw a lot of that. And it's like, what do you guys want?
Right.
I thought everyone loved what Kobe
people
said.
People are always going to be
like,
mad unless you win.
Right. And they are winning. So it's like clearly not all for show. It's like clearly something Heat culture like is
it's alive.
It is alive. Right. And whatever example Jimmy Butler is setting has inspired this team of this like ragtag team to make it to the NBA finals. And it's like exactly how I thought all of NBA Twitter wanted their players to act. And like, as far as they wanted their stars to take them. And it's like, I still see hate online. And if he loses, there just better not be any, man. Like, I don't care if he loses the finals to the number 1 seed in the West as a play-in loser. Like, I don't want to see any thread. I don't want to see any hot take. I don't want to see any, controversial opinion. It's like, when are we going to have dialogue about Jimmy Butler? It's like, no, the dialogue all better be like getting on your hands and knees and like worshiping what he's done, because this is crazy. And it's like, we're watching like the reincarnation of like everything I thought people wanted from a player. And it's like, I just get so frustrated. But
what you've learned here is that no one actually wants to be happy. They just want to complain about things.
Katie had it right. But I don't know. The Heat can't really, they can lose this series, but man, like I don't think they can be slandered at all. I think that I don't want to see any of that. If it's a bad finals, if they lose in 4, I don't want to hear anybody calling them frauds.
Braun went to
if
what?
They were frauds, they would have lost to.
Braun went to what? 10 straight?
I think it was 8 straight, which is
was
crazy.
It 8 straight?
But
like, yeah, and he lost a lot.
As far as the
decent number of them, so.
But yeah, we're all anticipating a Nuggets victory here, and I think they're just big and they can all shoot, and defensively they've been really locked in over the course of all of these playoffs.
That's
and
the other thing. They have a lot of good defenders
that,
to throw at Miami.
Mm-hmm. And that was the one thing I was concerned about is like, with Jokic on the floor, if their best players aren't good defenders, that can be exploited. And historically, you needed that top 10 offense and that top 10 defense to win something. And I don't know. Do you think like that could come back to bite them versus Miami at all, Matt? I know you're picking him to win big time here.
I think they're going to go at Jokic a lot, and I think it's going to be successful somewhat in pick and roll. Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, the Nuggets defense has turned it around a considerable amount. And it's not like the Heat are out here as some top 10 offense, top 10 defense type team.
Yep.
The teams that were like that just weren't what they were billed to be. So someone's got to win it. And I think the Nuggets, looking back on it, were the best team this year, or have been the best team this year so far.
I wonder what the all this rest is good or bad.
It's a good
I don't know if it is a good thing. You think?
Yeah.
I could see them maybe coming in a little bit rusty. I mean, they've been playing their best basketball of the season in these playoffs, and then you just get this really long hiatus when maybe you just want to keep up the flow and keep up the pace.
Maybe, but also Jimmy Butler's probably like, man, I wish I had a couple more days to rest.
I'd rather have too much rest than not enough. I don't think I'm particularly worried about it.
Yeah.
I probably don't think so either. It's a really interesting dynamic, though. It looked like they were both about to get all this rest, and then I wonder what the Nuggets were, what the conversations were. They were prepping for the Heat when it was 3-0, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure they spent times practicing and imitating the looks that they thought they would get from Miami. And then all of a sudden it's 3-1, 3-2, 3-3. I wonder how that changed their process and changed their practice habits and changed what they were prepping for, if anything. I just don't know how that works. I've never been in an NBA building. I'm really curious. I don't think we'll see it on the floor in the finals, but I hope it's asked. I hope there's some story about it, because I'd be interested to hear what the mentality was and how the prep changed as that Heat Celtics series went on for the Nuggets.
It would be interesting.
Not that it really matters. I just think it's interesting.
No, I think it's very interesting. Super excited to announce this episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by our newest sponsor at Oakley. Express your style and build a brand that's built for you. I don't know if any of you know this, but I used to be a pretty avid golfer. And when it was my tee time, I was always rocking Oakley, whether it be gloves, visors, sunglasses. I was always feeling my best when I was wearing my Oakley gear. Theo, I don't know if you've had the same experience. I see you're wearing your Oakley shades right now.
What really makes them stand out to me is they enhance the world around me. I feel like I'm living in an Instagram filter with these things. I don't know what tint they put in them, but the greens are greener, the reds are redder. I go around, I just go on walks with the Oakleys just to get a new perspective on things, because everything just looks way more beautiful when I'm wearing them, including myself. So I just don't see any downside. You got to get these sunglasses.
No, it's ridiculous. I always I've just been going to the car wash just because I like how the world looks in these sunglasses. It's the only excuse I can find to leave.
The sky is like just a kind of a different shade of blue, and the trees are a different shade of green. And I'm like, I've never thought about it like this before.
It's different.
It's really
if life looked like this every day, man,
it can.
It can, because you're wearing your Oakleys. They really are changing the game. And it's time to discover a whole new world of possibilities. Do you run, golf, train, or maybe you just want to look like your favorite athlete, Lamar Jackson or Justin Jefferson? Then regardless, you need to get yourself a pair of Oakleys today. Here at Stay Hot, we're all about look good, feel good, play good. And that's why Oakley is the perfect partner for us. We don't leave our house in the morning without our Oakleys. And with summer just around the corner, that means you need to upgrade your sunglasses game immediately. Did you know Oakley's even offers prism lens technology? Now, what is that, you might ask? Well, it's a proprietary technology unique to Oakley, specifically suited for both peak performance and everyday settings. Want to know more? Well, you can head on over to Oakley.com and do your own research. And while you're there, go ahead and get yourself a pair of everyday sunglasses that'll be sure to change your look for the better. When you wear Oakley, there really is more that meets the eye. Don't trust me. Try for yourself. I've worn a lot of sunglasses brands in my life, and I can assure you Oakley is not only the best looking, but the best quality out there. So head on over to Oakley.com for more information today. If you guys want to move on to this Defensive Player of the Year draft, get into a little bit of football. Theo, you're over here with the first pick. And if you take my guy, yes, I'm going to be furious.
Well, will you be furious if I don't take your guy?
No, because
then I would be saying someone's going to win it over your guy.
That's true, but I would be okay with that, because then I would get to say that my guy will win it.
That's fair.
If you take my guy, then I'm taking Matt's guy.
Oh, wow. We got a 3-person standoff here. And I also don't know who Matt's guy is. He's a Panthers fan. Burns?
No, it won't.
I don't know. We'll find out when it happens. I'm going to take TJ Watt to begin this thing.
Fair enough.
I remember a while back I made a video, and the plan going into the video was why Myles Garrett was better than TJ Watt. And then I watched, and I was doing my research and taking notes, and I changed my mind and did why TJ Watt was better than Myles Garrett. I think Steelers fans, I saw a tweet that was going around, and it was like some Steelers fan, and he was in Excel, and there was a bunch of stats. It was Myles Garrett versus TJ Watt. And TJ Watt won all the stat categories, but some of the stat categories were extremely janky. He had like average fumble return yards or something, or like average interception return yards. It was like something stupid. But TJ Watt just is more productive than Myles Garrett at the end of the day. Like TJ Watt's pressure numbers, I think, are probably higher over the past couple of years. The sack numbers are higher. The tackle numbers are higher. He makes more plays on the ball in terms of forced fumbles, and he can drop into coverage and even gets PBUs and interceptions in that area of the field as well. He's not as bendy as Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett also has like the best burst in the league, which is a pretty crazy and dangerous combination. But TJ Watt has the best hands in the league, and that's not nothing. Like his array of moves and the way that he's able to keep his frame clean and win that way is extremely valuable and extremely impressive. And he also just kind of has a sixth sense of where the quarterback is going to move throughout the pocket. And his motor is incredibly high. And he gets a lot of shit for cleanup sacks and, you know, sacks that maybe aren't as impressive as Myles Garrett. But for me, sometimes it's like he takes off towards an area that the quarterback hasn't even scrambled to yet, just because he realizes that that's what's going to happen. And then it looks like a cleanup sack, but there's a reason that he's the one there first all of the time.
Right.
So he was hurt last year, didn't have a huge year, but I don't know, man. Every time he plays, it's just the numbers are off the charts. And a healthy TJ Watt season, I think that it's a pretty safe bet that he has better numbers than everybody else and gets his second one.
Yeah, I mean, the one caveat I will give for the productivity that TJ Watt has, and you all know I'm taking Myles Garrett.
Yes.
Myles Garrett
Not JOK.
has... No, we're taking actually Grant Delpit. No.
Next. What did you say about Grant Delpit a couple of days ago, or a couple episodes ago?
You said
something crazy
of all time, I think.
Yeah, it was something along those lines.
Is that what I said?
Yeah,
If someone is willing to go
Ed Reed or Grant Delpit, I'm taking Grant Delpit.
If someone wants to go through the transcript and find what I said about Grant Delpit a couple episodes ago and leave it in the comments, I'm sure. Screen record it and mention us on Twitter. No, but Myles Garrett has had no help. I mean, the defensive line outside of him has been kind of a joke. Mm-hmm. Right. And the Steelers has been marginally better. So, I mean, Myles Garrett is literally facing like offensive linemen by himself. The one point that Clowney always made was, well, why does Garrett always get the tough matchups or get the easy matchups? It's like, dog, because if they don't try and manipulate these matchups, he's just going to get triple teamed. Like straight up. And maybe someone else gets free, but like if I can get a free rusher or if I can get an easy matchup, I want it to be Garrett. I think now you're going to get a lot more of, you don't have to manipulate so much with Garrett trying to generate pressure. You can just line up and let him cook a little bit more. And then when you do manipulate stuff, it's going to work a little bit better, or it's going to work a lot better because you have actual guys. You have Okoronkwo, you have Dalvin Tomlinson, and you can actually get after. You have Siaki Ika now.
And Zadarius Smith.
Like you have you have tons of guys that can help Garrett. And it seems backwards. It's like, oh, the more guys you put on a defensive line, wouldn't there be like less production to go around? But the key is that it's more for an offensive line to handle, and thus it's going to be easier for Garrett to get pressure off the edge. And I think that this is the first season that he has that, and I think it could be a really big one for him.
And to argue against my own point with TJ Watt, I do think like overall the Browns defense will be better than the Pittsburgh defense. I think the Browns secondary is better.
Yeah. The Browns,
and I think they're as a whole right now.
Minka's amazing.
Well, obviously, but their corners, like it's kind of, I guess there's Joey Porter Jr. now, but I think like the corner situation in Pittsburgh is a lot more dire than the corner situation in Cleveland. And I honestly like the defensive line overall. Give me Cleveland's over Pittsburgh's right now. As good as Highsmith was last year in TJ Watt's absence, and as good as TJ Watt is, and as good as Cameron Hayward has been.
Right.
I think Cameron Hayward's getting a bit older. I'm still not sold on the linebacker play, I guess in either place, but it's been rough for a while in Pittsburgh. But I look at that front four in Cleveland that you just laid out with Dalvin and Okoronkwo and Zadarius Smith, who had a good year last year, and Myles Garrett. And
it's scary.
Did I say Dalvin Tomlinson? With a new defensive coordinator moving on from Schwartz to Woods, I think is going to be an upgrade. If it's a similar year and Cleveland has the better defense, then I'm probably leaning, then, maybe the voters might lean Garrett, but I don't know. I think TJ, he's just so productive all the time, and it just has been that way for years. And it's not just in sacks; it's in all areas of the field. So, but you can't go wrong with either pick. They're both absolutely tier 1 elite guys, and I don't really.
Yeah, I mean they could trade off 1A, 1B best edge defender every year for the next decade, and you'd be like, yeah, that's about right. But Matt, you're here with the third pick.
And the fourth pick. Luckily for me,
the fourth pick.
There's 4 tier 1 edge rushers right now, so I get 2 of them. And luckily for me, I think you guys slipped up. You slipped up really bad.
Oh no!
Let me get this. Yeah, they're going to post this graphic. Everyone on Twitter is going to say, "Oh my God, Matthew, you've done it." There's 2 of the 4 guys we're talking about here. I'll make myself. It's Garrett, TJ Watt, Parsons, and Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa and Parsons are 1 and 2 in pressures last year. Bosa obviously winning the award last year. I think both of those guys have just as good a shot to win it as either Watt or Garrett. I don't have a super strong reason as to why I think any given year or this given year, maybe Parsons will do it, or this given year, Bosa will do it. But I think they've got just as good odds as any of them any of those 4 to pull it off. Bosa obviously coming off, such a great season. He just seems completely unblockable at this point. His win rate is like 25% or something crazy. He's also great, along the edge. And then you've got Parsons, who you can move all around and do all that crazy stuff with. So my picks at 3 and 4 will be Bosa and then Parsons. Going with Bosa first, of course, because he went to Ohio State.
So true.
Can I make an aside before you make a pick? I'm looking at the odds on Sharp Football Analysis right now, which, who knows if these odds are exactly consistent across all sportsbook, but I'm betting it's true most places. Aiden Hutchinson has better Defensive Player of the Year odds than Rashawn Gary. I will not be picking Rashawn Gary in this draft, but by God, if he doesn't have better odds than Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson.
Put $1 on it right now.
He was good last year. He really was. He was fine. He was a good player. He was a net positive for the defense. He dropped into coverage, much like TJ. He was someone who was productive when they dropped him into coverage. He's got an insane motor. He got it's all of this, but he's just not that guy at this point, and he wasn't last year. Last year, there were a lot of bullshit sacks, bullshit. Go watch the 3-sack game against Washington, and you'll see it was. I just don't understand what he did last year, and I guess he has the pick, the number 2 overall pick, and you can project growth, and he could be better. He had some really good sacks versus, I believe it was Dallas, that really, made me jump out of my chair and clap and cheer because I thought they were fantastic. But Rashawn Gary he was solidly in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation before he tore his ACL. That guy's speed to power is maybe the best in the entire league. Seriously. When he gets ahead of steam, he is just so big and so fast, and he strikes with such, coordination and power that there's not a tackle in the league who it's not going to knock back. And over the past couple of years, he's been just an absolute pressure machine. And I just don't see him on this list, and I see Aiden Hutchinson on this list, and I just think that's a little. This is me as a Packer fan yelling at this odds list that I'm looking at. Aiden Hutchinson is also above Chris Jones on this list that I'm looking at.
Yeah,
and
I know you're picking Chris Jones.
I think that's crazy.
I think that's crazy.
No
I just like no disrespect. It's just let's respect some other people. Like Aiden Hutchinson, let's properly value him. Let's not disrespect him.
Right.
But let's properly value, some of these other guys as well. Because I'm
but that's the
looking
thing
at
with
these
betting
odds
lines is it all comes down to like what people are betting. Oftentimes, people can get fooled by anything, or like a Reddit post, for example, could move betting odds greatly. Or just
friends and family. Aiden Hutchinson's friends and family have said
that
he is already locked up.
So true.
So
anyway, you can make your pick, Blaiden. Maybe you're about to pick Aiden Hutchinson and make me look silly.
How'd you know, man? No, I am going to pick a second-year player, though.
Get that off my chest. Ooh.
The reigning defensive rookie of the year, Sauce Gardner. Hey, in my book, he still hasn't allowed a touchdown, man. As far as I'm concerned.
I don't care what the stats say. That's true to me.
Yeah, that's facts. He was, Matt, we give you shit for like all of your Cincinnati and Ohio State.
We don't give him shit. I don't give him shit.
We don't give you shit for it. You're just right. Like
at this point, I'm just accepting of it.
You're just in awe that it always hits. So I'm just gonna keep riding that train. And he really was just an amazing corner last year. As good as guys like Ramsey and Surtain. Like
not
he
as
was
good.
Better.
He is the best cornerback in the NFL and was from day one.
You're not
I
wrong.
feel so vindicated. I can't believe he was corner 2 in his class. That's always going to make me mad, man.
And, okay, to be completely fair to Stingley, he never had a prayer. they never gave this man a chance to like. He was always
no hate to Stingley.
In like the worst. Good. They were just like running the worst defense.
Yeah, well, he did get mossed by Mike Williams like several times in a game. That's so true. There is some fault of Stingley's.
Sauce Gardner.
I think he'll be good though.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'll take Sauce there. I think if any corner has a chance to win it, he has the thing that makes it hard for like a lockdown corner is just like the attention, right? Like you put up, crazy sack numbers. Everyone can see that. But Sauce already has the persona. He already has the attention on him. All he has to do is not allow a touchdown, and I think he'd be okay.
Yeah, I mean,
and he plays behind a very, very, very good front four. And I remember when the Super Bowl was happening, and we looked at all the success that Bradbury and Slay had, and I was able to ask him about it, and they just were like, "Well, it's pretty easy for me when our front seven gets 70 sacks. Like they can't really exploit me down the field." And what did the Jets do this offseason? They've still got Quinnen Williams. You got another year with Jeremiah Johnson. Why am I forgetting Jermaine Johnson?
Yeah.
And then they added Will McDonald and all that. So like, I see no reason why this front four isn't going to continue to be very, very good. And that just makes Sauce Gardner's life easier. And even when you do target Sauce Gardner, he's the biggest corner in the league and he has crazy movement skills. And
right.
Yeah,
it's a good example of this.
A pretty sweet deal.
I think Sauce Gardner has every argument for being the best defensive player in the NFL. It's hard to compare position, but he's right up there, But yeah, the numbers just like you have to kind of get the sort of like, here's how many yards he's allowed against this receiver thing going. I mean, even back to his Cincinnati days, Sauce Gardner, best cornerback in college football, never let up a touchdown, best player on a team going to the playoffs, did not win the Thorpe Award because teams wouldn't throw to him. The guy who won it, Kobe Bryant, had a bunch of interceptions because teams had to throw to somebody. They threw to him. He put up the numbers. He won the award.
Right.
So It's difficult.
I think that's getting better with corner play, though. I think like that's part of the reason that Sauce got all the hype last year is not because of crazy interception numbers. Woolen had all that, but I mean, Sauce was just suffocating, and there was never a game where he really got abused. There was Claypool got him once, Stephon Diggs got him once on a double move off the top of my head, but really it was a pretty clean sheet week in and week out with him. And in his second year, I mean, it's always been that way with Sauce Gardner, so to project anything else would be a little silly.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's I don't know, Evan Ingram got him on a drag route. And I remember seeing that clip posted to Twitter, and it's like, okay, so this guy is definitely the best cornerback in the NFL if this is what we're getting him for.
Gotcha.
You got beat on a drag route when you had outside leverage. Tough.
Right. It's like, okay, I guess.
You suck.
Yeah, so
I was 7x1 outside, couldn't cover the drag.
And it's interesting overall with cornerbacks. They've just been getting more respect recently. I remember when Denzel Ward was picked 4th overall, he was the first cornerback to go that high in like 20 years. And since then, there's been a guy going right around that high every single season, it seems like, in the draft. I mean, Witherspoon this year, Sauce and Stingley, Okudah. It happens all the time now.
I think we're getting to a point where people are just realizing that you need to have a good corner. And
well, if receivers are so valuable,
part of it is right.
Then the guys guarding them must be.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's just true. And also, I think like we're in a talented era. Like Blaiden, like you said, we're kind of in a renaissance. I think as positions have different strengths in different eras, and that's part of it. I think like we're kind of in a weaker era for running backs, and I think that kind of spurred some of the running backs don't matter stuff. It's like because there isn't a prime AP in the league right now. Derrick Henry is an outlier, Nick Chubb are an outlier, but it's not like there's a million of these guys running around. It's not like defensive tackles is an amazing place right now. There's so many good defensive tackles. Off-ball linebackers, you get past Fred Warner, and then it's like,
dude, it's bad.
It's like. It's like Demario Davis, number 2, and he's 36 damn
it's
near.
Like Shaq Leonard, who's coming off like an awful
Shaq
injury
Leonard's
season.
Good. You know who I really like at off-ball linebacker? Now I'm just naming guys. He's not going to win. I'm going to run this by you, Matt. I was watching Shaq Thompson, number 7 for the Panthers.
Shaq Thompson's not a bad player. Maybe
very good.
Paid $23 million a year. It's possible. Outside of that, though,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean,
I get why they paid him that much, though. I was watching him like this guy's
do what he can do. There's not a lot.
This guy's damn good.
Panthers fans have always been iffy about him, but he's very good. He's very respectable in pass coverage. I actually like the Panthers linebackers a decent amount, everything considered.
I think so too. I was watching them. I'm looking at. Wait, I want to. Now that I'm just talking and hijacking this entire thing.
Yeah, it's your pick. You have 2 picks. Actually,
and he's taking Shaq Thompson.
Oh, it is my pick. I'm looking at betting pros, and now I see Rashawn Gary's odds for Defensive Player of the Year are higher than
Hey.
So I might just be looking at bad websites.
And people listen.
Bro went into Inspect Element and switched them.
Where even is? And I don't care. Anyway, I'm going to take someone that's kind of off the beaten path because these are all very boring picks with all due respect to all of us.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take someone new. I'm going to take Max Crosby. I'm going to take Max Crosby because last year I was kind of sitting on the Nick Bosa take. I know I kind of tried to soft launch that he was one of these tier 1 edges and an elite guy at the same level as Watt and Garrett. And at the time, now it's obvious, but at the time that would have been a hot take. And there's a reason that I didn't hard launch it is because I wasn't quite sure if I was willing to stand up to the abuse that I would have taken for saying it. And this year I feel kind of the same way about Max Crosby. I think you look at that guy and the pure intensity that he plays with, it can be kind of scary to watch a guy play with his hair on fire like Max Crosby does. He's just an absolute tilt-a-whirl. He has got everything you want. He's got spins. He's got the long arm. He's got the bull rush. He has got, everything you want. The arm over swims. He can win around the edge with bend. And he is probably a better run defender than any of the other guys that we've mentioned. Any of the other elite like Garrett, I think he's a better run defender than I think he might be. Like
I would agree.
I don't know.
That's one thing Garrett's always
really,
been a
really
little bit
impactful
iffy
in
on.
that. He's someone who puts up production with no help. Like you say, the Browns have no help, and Garrett has no help.
My
like,
God.
it's even worse with Max Crosby.
Yeah,
like he is
no
the
secondary.
MVP.
Like,
yeah, if you were to give out MVP for defense, I think I would give out Max Crosby because he was the only redeeming quality last year. And maybe this year Nate Hobbs can have a bounce back year. I still want to believe in him. I like Tyree Wilson a decent amount. I don't know about year one impact, but I think that Max Crosby, he's only 25 years old. Okay. He's not as old as people think. And I'm seeing now he was born August 22nd. We're birthday buddies, Max. And he worked for Blue Wire for a while.
Hey,
he did.
So
that's
our
got
podcast network. So he's got my
every
birthday.
Player we pick
he worked
should have
for
some connection to us.
He was a coworker, kind of.
He's my friend.
I'm picking
He's my
Ivan
friend.
Pace. I'm picking Ivan
My
Pace
friend
because he
Max.
went to Miami.
So I don't know. The Raiders defense could be terrible. The Raiders are an absolute dumpster fire right now. We haven't talked about even the Jimmy Garoppolo thing and like what their next move could be, which could be a topic for later maybe.
Yeah, we'll save that.
And it could be hard to win Defensive Player of the Year if they're like dead last in all the metrics, but
Yeah.
I don't know, man. He's real good. And I think that his best seasons at age 25, what he is now, like could still be in front of him. And I think that he could cement himself. So I'm going to take Max Crosby. And then I am going to take, with my last selection, I am going to take Chris Jones because I think he should have won it last year.
Yeah.
I think he should have won it last year.
I
worry
love
a little
Max
bit
Crosby
about
pick, Theo. I love the Max Crosby pick.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm taking
He led the league in tackles
Chris
for
Jones over Aaron Donald, which is kind of strange, but he was better last year. Like Chris Jones was the guy, and Aaron Donald has, I mean, if we're talking about no help with Myles Garrett and then we're talking about no help with Max Crosby, the third level of no help is what Aaron Donald is working with this year. I mean, it's pathetic. It's the worst defensive roster I've ever seen outside of him.
Yeah.
So he's going to get triple teamed. I could maybe see that being a problem for Chris Jones as well. Now that Frank Clark is gone, that front four is looking a little dicey right now. But if Karlaftis can take a leap and you can get something out of their first round pick, Uzoma, and Michael Dana has some juice as well. Hopefully, and they blitz a lot with Bolton and Gay. So hopefully they can still manufacture him one-on-ones to the same level they were doing last year, which it wasn't even a high level. He was getting double teamed a lot. And I think that he's going to continue to destroy. So yeah, he's elite. I thought he was the best player last year. Not that Nick Bosa wasn't a deserving winner too, but I would have given it to Chris Jones and maybe he can get it done this year.
Yeah,
That's fair.
that is fair. All right, so it's my last pick. I really didn't think Theo was going to take Max Crosby. That messed me up a little bit.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I forgive you, man.
Okay, good.
So
Good.
I think, you know what? I will go with a guy that I was giving a lot of credit early in last season, the other Steelers elite player, Minkah Fitzpatrick. He might be the best safety
I think he is.
in the NFL. I mean, it's like probably between him, Derwin, and Simmons, maybe Byard. You throw in that mix too. I just feel like there's nothing.
I think it's I think it's him, man. He's just comes through and you talk about there was a video and I think Nico posed this question, like most clutch defensive player. It's like Minkah Fitzpatrick, I swear to God, had like a pick six whenever the Steelers needed a pick six last season.
He did. He's so good. He does everything. He's all
Has
over
a
the
safety
field.
ever won though?
I don't know, but like it's my last.
I don't think
pick.
they
It's,
have.
We're 8
I'm
picks
sure
deep.
at some point. Yeah, I'm sure Ed Reed or Troy Polamalu. got
I
one.
don't think
Oh, Troy Polamalu did win.
he?
That's a good call because he won over Clay Matthews.
Did Ed Reed never get one?
I would have guessed Ed
don't
Reed
know.
would
I don't-
have gotten one over instead of Polamalu. I didn't know Polamalu had one.
I would wager they both did. Yes,
Polamalu did
2004
have
Ed Reed.
one. Okay,
And
nice
Polamalu
call.
had one and Reed had one. Yeah, I mean, AFC North, man. Something about it.
Did that Colts, that super fast Colts safety whose name is Sanders? Did he ever
Bob
get
Sanders.
one? Did he get one, or am I making that up out of thin air?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I know it.
Okay.
Well,
Okay,
I guess
then that's
there's a
acceptable
few.
because I do think that he's the best safety, and
Yeah,
I guess
I think
there's more
so,
of a
too.
precedent than I thought.
I think so too.
And the Steelers
If-
disguise so much stuff too. Like you just never know what's going to happen when post snap with them, and I think that it generates a lot of turnovers. And if TJ Watt is back, that could even generate more turnovers and more opportunity for Minka Fitzpatrick to capitalize on bad decisions.
We talk about safety, winning defensive player of the year as a safety. I mean, you just straight up have to get the numbers. Like as a corner, we can be like, oh, well, you were in man coverage a lot, and you had X many pass breakups, and you allowed whatever completion rate, whatever pass rate. As a safety, I mean, your assignments are so ambiguous that like if you don't just like lead the league in interceptions, lead the league in forced fumble, like if you don't have some crazy numbers, you're not going to win it. But I think Minka's the type of guy that can do it.
Yeah, I don't trust PFF to chart safeties, and it's tough to say like. Well, seriously,
the only time I ever look at PFF is just to literally see like how many times they lined up in the box or how many times.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, they're not on the screen, and it's like it's not like
right
when a safety is like targeted. It's like, well, are they? It's kind of tough to tell sometimes exactly what constitutes like a safety getting picked on or maybe a safety just being there when he's supposed to be there. So yeah, you're right. That it
I have a video. I have a video I'm releasing. I have a video I'm releasing on like the Bengals and their safeties because they have like 3 new ones, and that's the exact point that I brought up with like because like Nick Scott. It's like, oh, well, the Rams defense, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't just spoil the whole video. But like I brought up a play where like Nick Scott was basically put in this conundrum. It's like, oh, should I stay underneath this post route or should I go with the out route? But that was like the whole point that I brought up in that video. So I won't spoil the whole thing, but that's the general idea that I brought up there. Because his PFF grade is like terrible. And I'm like, how much do I buy that? But anyway,
Matt, I don't mind the pick.
Matt, you have the last pick here. Who are you taking?
It's a tough one here. I think past 8 things get a little bit tougher, a little bit foggier.
There's one very big name still on the board here.
Oh, you could be talking about Aaron Donald. He could always, do Aaron Donald things. He's on a really bad defense, though. So I question that a little bit. I could go
always
Fred
take
Warner.
Frankie Louvu.
I could take Frankie. Ooh,
Fred Warner.
Frankie Louvu.
Frankie Louvu, man.
I'm going Jeremy Chin, actually.
Frankie Louvu was Defensive Player of the Year through like week 5 last year, so maybe I should.
This is true.
He had like
I probably am going to go Aaron Donald. No, it's very much within reason that he has a bounce back year a little bit. He was hurt last year. He was playing great, but the sack numbers didn't add up for him, and he only played 11 games. He's on a bad defense, but who knows? They've made this. I don't know. That defense is not going to be good. He's not going to.
It's so funny how bad it is. But that doesn't mean that he still can't get 10 sacks, Like, I don't know.
Well, the numbers will be real good for him as always. Someone will post that like double team rate to pressure rate, and he'll be way off in the corner or whatever. And all right, I'll gamble on that. Who can blame me? Aaron Donald is real good. He's real good, and I think he could win it.
He's all right. He's pretty okay.
I think
Yeah, he's just the
his double team rate
goat.
is going to be nuts, would be my guess. And if he still puts up crazy pressure numbers, people love those graphs, man. They love that. That's not a bad way to judge players.
Oh yeah, that graph won Aaron Donald an award before because TJ Watt had the better like counting stats, and then Aaron Donald came into it because people were like, well, he's the defensive tackle. He's getting double teamed more than TJ Watt is, and yet he's still winning. He's deconstructing his blocks more often. He's getting pressure more often. So that graph that ESPN posts every week won Aaron Donald the award. And I don't even necessarily think that was a complete steal because he is the best defensive player. You know, he just is. He's the best for a reason every single year. I mean, go look at his Pro Football Reference page. It's AP first team All Pro every single season. I think we all understand that he's the GOAT of this era on defense.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
I'll bet on him with the 9th pick. I think that's fair. Warner would also be up there, but I don't think he get any votes last year.
I can't imagine that he did.
I think he's just
Warner's great
at his position.
Yeah, Warner would have a tough time. I think if an off-ball linebacker were to win it, I could see maybe Shaq Leonard, just because
he creates so many turnovers.
Many turnovers. He had like 10 one year. It's ridiculous, or like 11.
It's a little bit tough to sell, like defending a dig in space as a linebacker and like taking that away. That doesn't really show up on anything, especially when there's like a Nick Bosa having a 12 sack year. Like everyone's going to look like who's the best player on this defense. And it's the numbers are all going to scream like Nick Bosa because they both have, there's 2 elite players there. And one is just a little bit more, has a little bit more pizzazz and has a little bit more positional value, probably. Although Fred Warner is pretty key to everything that they do there. So
yeah,
I don't want to.
Yeah, Shaq Leonard, I think, would be a valid pick. I think Fred Warner would be a valid pick, but yeah, I think it would just be hard for him. But those are our Defensive Player of the Year drafts. We have one more thing for you all, and that is our mailbag. I think today we're pulling from the YouTube comments because in the last episode, we asked you all to leave comments in the YouTube. So those are what we are responding to today. The first question, I think this one is mostly for Matt, but I guess it's a little bit for all of us. What are your thoughts on the Stepien rule in the NBA from Dylan?
I want to say it's stipend. I never remember how to pronounce it.
Is it stipend? Stepien? I
believe it is stipend. That sounds way more correct.
Yeah.
Well, in what I'm reading, it's spelled Stepien, but I don't know. What do I know? Nothing.
It's a good thing. I know the way this question was phrased is like, do you think it prevents teams from building how they want to? I promise you it was put in place for a reason. Here's the thing, man, is that you have to remember that like general managers get into a position when they make these big trades, these big, like the 4 picks, 3 pick swaps is the max you can do with the stipend rule, right? And those typically do not work, for the record. But the reason why they're made and why teams mortgage so much of the future is because it's usually not a team doing it. It's usually a general manager who's like, okay, let's say you're the Phoenix Suns, for example. Not saying they can't, bounce back a little bit next year and who knows. But you get in a position where if you're the GM, you're like, oh man, my options are saying this core doesn't work and we have to rebuild, which probably means I'm gone. Or I can go make the big trade and trade all the future assets and try to make it work differently. I'm going to try to make it work differently. If you let teams trade infinitely into the future, teams will just keep trying to like one up each other with like how far they're willing to mortgage future assets to get current assets to win now. I mean, right now it's already a contest like that. And the fact that also general managers would need to do it to save their job means that you'd get teams trading way, 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 way far into the future. If anything, I almost think that it should be even less. I think the number of teams that are missing their draft picks in the future, like just all of them, like the Clippers, for example, that sucks, man. I think it would promote more frequent player movement if teams weren't so sold out into the future, to be completely honest with you. And I don't think it'd be a bad thing. Like with the Clippers, for example,
that's what the NFL does.
They just can't blow it up. They can't. It's impossible, right? Like, because they're just, they're going to tank for nothing? No. Okay, well, then we're going to sit here and, I don't know, we're going to sit here and run it back for the millionth time. I think it'd be more interesting if teams couldn't trade so much of their future. But then you wouldn't get the big trades, and I guess that's fun. But yes, I'm a fan of it. You absolutely need it, and it was made a rule for a reason because of the Cavs.
Yeah, one selfish GM ruining a team for 30 years instead of 3 years is like bad.
Yeah,
and if the NFL does it, you should listen to the NFL. Sorry,
what is the rule in the NFL?
I don't know how many years in advance it can be. It can only be what, like 2? I've only ever heard it happening.
Well, it depends, I guess, because the Panthers traded a 2025 before the 2023 draft, so maybe 3. I've never heard of any more than 3.
3 sounds right. But.
And look, you can say what you want about the National Football League. You can call it a blood sport, and you can call it, too dangerous to play. And I'll be like, sure. You can call it boring and there's too many commercials, and I'll say absolutely. But one thing you cannot say about the NFL is they don't know how to actually structure a league and the off season. I think it's the best in the world at that. And
except for there's too much time before the draft.
That is true. There is some stuff like that, but they know what they're doing in that sense, and they know how to. They always seem to vote correctly, and they always seem to implement good rules, and when they don't, they change them, like the PI rule that was terrible, and they immediately reversed it. So if the NFL does it, I tend to lean it should be shorter because they know how to make an entertaining product, because it's like a running back grinding into an offensive line for 3 yards at a time, and 1 billion people still watch it every single year. So true. Yeah, follow their blueprint.
How did you we got people to watch the Atlanta Falcons just run with Ty Algier? That's terrible.
The NFL Hall of Fame game is some third string for Purdue, and you've never
unironically, it's David Bell. The Browns are in the Hall of Fame game.
You got David Bell. You got a David Bell masterclass in July that gets more views than every other sport combined. So just do what they do.
Next question.
If they do it, it's a good rule.
The next question is, Matt, is this from you?
What is it?
Do you think there will be an NBA salary market crash similar to what happened with the Lamar situation? Seeing guys like Jordan Poole and Ayton not live up to the expectations with guys like Jaylen Brown and Austin Reeves up for big deals has me thinking, says Matt.
Well, Lamar did get a big deal.
It didn't crash. He got his big money. I think that's a really interesting question. So you've got the CBA changing a whole bunch, which makes it harder to go into the luxury tax, which is a good thing. So the question is now, it's are teams going to pay these guys just for the sake of paying them and keeping them on the team? At the end of the day, the decision that NBA teams keep getting put into, once they're in the luxury tax and once they're, out of salary moves and they get a big guy who maybe is not an all-star or an all-NBA level player, but is really important, they have to choose whether or not they're going to pay him that big extension or they're going to lose him for nothing and be a worse team. And when you're a contending team, you only really have one option there. Celtics and Jaylen Brown, great example of that. Big extension, coming up here for him, right? He could get paid all this money. You saw the big thing. If they can't find a trade for him, or they can't find another team willing to pay him that contract, really, then their options are sign Jaylen Brown or lose him for nothing, because it's not like the NFL. If I don't pay a guy $20 million, I have $20 million to spend. The NBA, if you're over the soft cap, but you're not going to have actual cap space, you might lose them and then not also get the cap space. So I think the answer is probably no. Probably teams are going to keep doing this. So it's just a tough situation teams get put into. Sometimes it's the right move to overpay somebody.
I find it so bizarre. The NFL cap space and the way that works is pretty complicated as it is. And they have a hard cap. But I think about these teams that just have no cap space or have luxury tax, soft cap, that just makes things so complicated.
However, now with the new cap rules that it's a lot lower and the taxes are higher and it prevents you from like using exceptions earlier and trading first round picks, it's possible that having good value contracts becomes more valuable. In fact, the good value was going to be more at play. The tighter the salary cap, the more that's true, right? So who knows? Maybe teams get put in a position where it's like, we just can't pay this. We can't be in this position, and letting guys walk becomes more common. But I don't know.
Very fair. And then Theo, this last question is for you from Atlanta Fan 21. Says, I want to know what Theo's thoughts are on Rusty Buckets recently saying Midsommar is the greatest horror movie of all time.
I'm not a horror movie expert. I haven't watched a lot of like the great ones, so I guess I can't say for sure. I am not an Ari Aster fan, though. People know this about me. I would say Ari Aster is very technically refined. Definitely. His movies look great. The actors, he always gets the most out of them. They're very well done, and I can respect that part of him. But I think it's just, he just thinks of things that are taboo and just puts them on screen. And I think that anybody could do that. I do. I think
NFL
like, oh, this is so messed up. This is so messed up. No one would ever show this, and I'm going to show it. And it's going to make you uncomfortable. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, sure, whatever. I don't.
What is the NFL comparison?
I don't know. I don't think there is an NFL comparison.
Fair enough.
I don't think there is an NFL comparison, or at least not one that comes to me off the top of my head. It's not even scary. Ari Aster movies, I don't even think like my heart rate raises when I watch an Ari Aster movie. Like I don't care. It's just like, I don't know, stuff that I can't say on the podcast because it's just gross. It's disgusting and it's disturbing. It's like, we live in a society, man. If you want dark and disturbing, turn on the news. So I don't know. I'm just not an Ari Aster fan. So, but some people really are. And I don't know. I don't know enough about the horror genre to speak on it, but I would probably disagree because I don't know. I haven't watched Beau is Afraid. I'm going to hate watch it though, eventually at some point.
My general take,
and I know what it is going to be. I know exactly what Beau is Afraid is going to be when I watch it. It's just going to be like weird. It's not going to make a lot of sense, and it's going to be like really self-indulgent, and they're going to be like, wow, I can't believe there's nothing else like that on TV, which is always good. And I do respect uniqueness, but maybe there's a reason there's nothing else like that out there. Man. It's probably just bizarre and like slightly gross, which sure, fine.
No, man, it's just,
that's the way I want to go.
It's daring. No, my take on horror movies has always been the same as my take on like spicy food. Like if you can have a movie be scary, but you can have a movie be scary and good. And just like you can have food be spicy and taste good. But it's like making something spicy just for the sake of it being hot is lame. It's not like, no, I don't care to eat that. Like a friend of mine had his family tried hot ones, and they said that one of the like most of the sauces were pretty good and they didn't mind it, but like there was one sauce that was just disgusting, and like more so than it being like really hot, it also wasn't an enjoyable sauce. So they're like, I will never eat that. And I'm like,
yeah. And I think part of it is like, it's not designed to be eaten all the time. It's designed to say that you've done it, you know, like,
right.
Like I've had, it's like a challenge almost. And I think that's to some extent horror as well, is like, I'm strapping myself into this. Everyone's telling me how scary it is. There are people leaving the theater. They're disgusted. Like people are throwing up. Sometimes you'll get reviews of horror movies like that. Like, this is so disturbing. Some people can't even handle it. And that's almost a challenge. Or like a roller coaster, you know, like some roller coasters are just like crazy, and you know, maybe you throw up when you're done and that's not enjoyable, or you feel sick or scared, but it's like it's almost like a thrill seeking type of thing. It's a challenge. And I just don't think, like, I don't know. And I guess maybe that's already asked her appeal.
Not for me, you know, maybe that's.
Yeah. And that's kind of the appeal is like, oh man, this is so disturbing. But I just don't find it that challenging to like sit through, and I just don't find it very impressive to write. It's like I could sit here and think of messed up stuff all day, you know. Oh,
you just let the intrusive thoughts win.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone can, like, if you sat there and think like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like your brain could go to some pretty dark places. Like everyone's could, but it's like he's the one who actually like writes it, and maybe that's I just don't see the vision. But it just doesn't impress me. Like it just doesn't. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts on him.
I don't disagree with. I think we're on the same page there. Matt, do you have any thoughts?
I think so.
I've never seen any of his movies, so no. I don't like scary movies that much.
Yeah,
they're not even scary. They're just gross.
I don't like gross things.
There we go.
Real.
That's my take.
Respectable.
That's
take.
Fair.
Well, I can't handle scary stuff like at all. I'm a big baby about it. Same with roller coasters. I'm pretty much a baby about it. You don't scare me, man.
Oh, damn it.
Boo. Like, what?
I'm going to come wearing a sheet with 2 holes. See how scared you are there.
That would get me. Don't do that.
Okay.
So real.
Out of respect for you.
Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps things up. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, leave comments for different questions you want us to answer in the next episode. Make sure you leave replies on Twitter. And as always, until next time, we will catch you all on the Flippity Flop.